is baby bird season. I'm sure many of you are seeing an influx of baby birds in your yard, or when you're hiking or out birding. Have you noticed, though, that some baby birds look and act vastly different from others? Just compare a baby robin to a baby Canada goose. One hatches with eyes closed, barely any down fuzz, while the other hatches with complete down, eyes open, and within that day is walking around alongside its parents. That is because different species employ different strategies for their young's development. The robin would be called altricial, while the Canada goose, on the other hand, is precocial. Altricial birds, like the robin and other baby songbirds, hatch blind, with barely any down feathers, and are completely reliant on parents for quite some time, even after fledging. Precocial birds, like the Canada goose and other waterfowl and shorebirds, hatch with their eyes open, fully covered in down, and can usually walk and eat on their own within a day or two of hatching, often just needing their parents for warmth and protection. Both of these strategies have their pros and cons, and have reasons for why that species evolution took that course of growth. So, let's look a little more in depth into each of these categories. Altricials, like said earlier, hatch with their eyes closed, little, if any, down, and they have little to no ability to really move around. When they first hatch, they can generally barely even hold their head up, just enough to gape for food from their parents. Newly hatched birds sometimes require to even be fed every 15 minutes to keep up with the energy needed to supply their rapid growth. These species do rely completely on their parents for everything from food, protection, and because they, for the most part, have little, if any, down, rely on their parents to keep them warm. This development is commonly seen in species such as songbirds, woodpeckers, pigeons, and parrots. These species are also the ones who have the more typical nests, which not only hold the eggs, but provide a safe place for the young to grow. The benefit of this style, although it does require extensive parental care, is that the chicks grow very, very quickly. After a short incubation time of about 10 to 13 days, they typically hatch, and they then can go from hatching to fledging in less than 2 weeks' time. But before that time, the nestling is extremely vulnerable to predation, so the sooner they fledge and leave that nest, better they'll be at avoiding possible predation while in the nest. Though the downfall of this, it is very easy to lose the whole brood instead of just a single chick to predation. Once they fledge, the parents will still provide care until the chick is fully independent. Some species also show a bit of a blend of the two, though they can be categorized still as one or the other. Semi-altricial birds, while still generally be considered altricial, still hatch covered in down. They are still not able to leave the nest and still require being fed by the parents, but they can hatch with their eyes either open or closed. An example of this is in raptors and herons, who hatch with eyes open, and then owls, who hatch with eyes closed. These species tend to hatch a bit more developed than you would see in your typical songbird hatchling. After that, you would have some species that would be considered semi-precocial. These birds hatch with eyes open, covered in down, and are able to leave the nest shortly after hatching. But they do generally stay in or near the nest while continuing to be fed by the parents. This developmental style can be seen in gulls and terns, for example. Precocial birds, unlike altricial, hatch much more developed. They also usually have a longer incubation period than altricial species, typically a little bit longer than 20 days, depending on the species. Within a day or two of hatching, they are able to leave their nest, walk fine on their own, and, depending on the species, able to swim. They also hatch out completely covered in down with their eyes open. These birds are also generally able to feed themselves as they accompany their parents around, who provide them protection and extra warmth. While they may hatch more developed than altricial species, they do grow slower and rely on their parents for a much longer period, sometimes for several months. This strategy allows for a less of a chance of the whole brood being lost, with it much more likely that only a few will be lost. There are a few different little categories of precocial species, mainly with the consideration of how the chicks feed. Some, like ducklings and shorebird chicks, follow their parents around but feed themselves. Game birds, such as pheasants, quails, and turkeys, also follow their parents around but are shown their food. Then there are birds such as rails, grebes, and loons that will follow their parents but will still be fed by them. There is also another category here, and that is super precocial. These species are born with flight feathers and are sometimes able to fly within days of hatching, like some grouse species. But the most extreme example of precocial species is the megapode. They hatch with eyes fully open, covered in downy feathers, and a full set of flight feathers. Almost as soon as they hatch, they can run, fly, and catch their own prey. They receive almost no parental care from the day their eggs are laid, as this species uses a very unique way to incubate their eggs. Instead of brooding or incubating the eggs using the body heat from a parent, the megapode buries their eggs. They will construct a large mound of decaying vegetation where the male adds or removes materials to regulate the temperature. So, why would a species evolve to choose one of these patterns over the other? The two main contributing factors in this case are food availability and predation. Precocial species rely on the adult female to find enough food and resources to lay more energy rich eggs that allow for a more developed chick at hatching. It has also been found that precocial bird eggs can contain up to 2 times the calories per unit of weight than altricial bird eggs do. They usually also lay more eggs, and with offspring more independent, the chances of several surviving to adulthood is much, much higher. On the other hand, altricial females don't have that burden to lay such energy rich eggs, but make up for it with a high demand of food for the hatchlings as they rapidly grow. This strategy generally has fewer eggs laid, but has more energy put into raising them to grow and fledge as soon as possible, but with higher chances of a whole brood being lost more than just a few. So, next time you're out birding and you see a baby bird, take a close look at it. How is it acting? How is it being cared for by the parents? Is it altricial or is it precocial?